Have you ever wondered why so many people suffer because of love? Why do we enter into relationships and break them off, searching for something we never find? Or worse, why do so many people seem stuck in unhappy relationships, but still cannot get out of them? If you have ever felt that being alone could be freer than being in a relationship, but are afraid to admit it, or if you have ever been with someone and still felt a deep emptiness, then this video is for you. Today, let us examine the unpleasant truth that society avoids at any cost. Carl Jung shows that in most cases, it is better to be alone than to have a partner, but not in the superficial sense that many imagine. It does not mean rejecting love or self-isolation. Understanding why the blind search for the perfect relationship can be the biggest illusion in your life. And I promise if you stay with me until the end of this video, you will never look at romantic love the same way again. From a young age, we are taught to believe that we will only be happy when we find our other half. This concept is present in everything, in fairy tales, in soap operas, but have you ever wondered what this actually means? The idea that we need another person to complete us is based on the assumption that we are not whole. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists in history, warned us about this mistake. According to him, people spend their lives searching outside for what can be found inside. The problem is, when we fall in love, we do not see the other person as they really are. We see a reflection of our own desires, needs, and insecurities. We project safety, recognition, purpose, and call it love. But what happens when this projection collapses? The truth is that sooner or later, this illusion crumbles. And it is at this moment that many realize they loved not the real person, but a fantasy created by their own minds. And when this fantasy crumbles, we have two choices. 1. Look reality in the face and admit that others cannot fill our emptiness. 2. We cling to the relationship out of fear of loneliness, pretending that nothing has changed. The problem is that most people choose the second option, and that is why there are so many unhappy relationships. How many people do you know who live trapped in a relationship without love, without passion, without growth? How many of them have settled because they feel that remaining alone would be even worse? Jung said that what we suppress becomes our shadow. And in love, this shadow manifests itself in destructive ways. Possessiveness, control, emotional dependence, fear of being abandoned. The more we seek in others what we lack, the more we become hostages of our own dissatisfaction. But then, why do we continue to fall into this trap? Because we are taught to do so. Society teaches us that romantic love is the solution to all our problems. Find someone if you are insecure. Find someone if you feel empty. But no one teaches us to be whole alone. The most ironic thing is that the more you seek a relationship to fill your inner voids, the more you attract people who are also incomplete. The result? Relationships based on need. And here arises a question that few dare to answer. Do you really love the person next to you, or are you just afraid to be alone? If the answer is the second option, then Jung was right. It is better to be alone than to have a partner, because true love, the one that frees and does not bind, is only possible when two people choose to be together, and not when they depend on each other to feel good. But to reach this level of true love, you need to take the first step. And that step is not finding a partner. The first step is to look inside, and that is exactly what we are going to explore further. Because if everything you have been taught about love and relationships is wrong, then how can we love truly? Are you ready for such a truth? If you have ever felt lonely in a relationship, if you have ever looked at the person next to you and wondered, who is this stranger? Or if you have already realized deep down that what you called love was just a reflection of your own needs, then know that you are not alone. This happens to more people than we think, and perhaps this is the biggest mistake we make in love. We have already talked about how Carl Jung discovered that the search for the ideal partner can actually turn out to be a big illusion. Now let us take another step forward. Let us delve into projection, at the moment when the illusion crumbles and we are forced to face the truth. We are not looking for another. We are looking for the part of ourselves that we gave up along the way. Imagine a woman named Elena. She is 52 years old, and she has been married for almost 30 years. When she met Marcos, she felt an immediate connection. He was confident, decisive, strong, everything she had ever wanted from a man. Over the years, she believed that he was the perfect complement to her life. But over time, she began to notice something strange. The same qualities that attracted her now suffocated her. His confidence began to seem domineering. His decisions began to look like a lack of empathy. His strength began to feel cold. And one day she realized that what she had always admired in him was not in him, but in her. She realized that throughout her life she had wanted to be more confident, more assertive, and more firm in her choices. But instead of developing these qualities in herself, she had looked for a partner who possessed them. Jung described this as psychological projection. He said that everything we suppress in ourselves, whether positive or negative, we ultimately see in others. And that is why when we are in love, we feel that the other person is exactly what we need. But what happens when the projection falls apart? If there is something that few people talk about regarding romantic love, it is that it always falls apart sooner or later. What we see in others begins to dissolve. The handsome prince becomes an ordinary man. The perfect woman is full of flaws. And the scariest thing is when the illusion disappears, we are forced to come face to face with ourselves. That is why so many relationships go into crisis after a few years, because suddenly we realized that the person next to us was not who we thought they were. But is the other person really to blame for this? Or are we projecting an impossible ideal onto them? The big problem with how society teaches us to love is that we learn to look for what we lack, rather than sharing what we have. Think about it. How many times have you seen people who entered into a relationship because they felt incomplete? How many times does someone say they are with someone else because they feel safe, feel loved, feel important? This looks like love, but in reality, it is not. It is a need. True love is not what fills the void, but what overflows from us. That is why Jung said that a healthy relationship is only possible when two people are self-sufficient before they are together. If you need someone to feel good, then that love is not about each other, it is about you. And it is at this moment that one of the biggest dilemmas of modern love arises. The more we seek in others what we lack, the more we are nothing but a reflection of our own needs. Many people stay in unhappy relationships because they are afraid of loneliness, and society constantly reinforces this fear. If you are single after 40, it is because something went wrong. If you have not found the right person, it is because you have not tried hard enough. How many people are married and feel absolutely alone? How many live next to someone who does not see them, does not understand them, does not care about what they feel? Loneliness is not about the absence of company, it is about the absence of connection. And this is the great truth that no one has the courage to admit. Being in a relationship just because you are afraid to be alone is the worst form of loneliness, and Jung warned about this decades ago. The only way to build a healthy relationship is to first learn to be okay with yourself. And that does not mean you have to go through life alone. But it does mean that if loneliness scares you, then maybe you have not yet learned to feel whole on your own. So, what to do with all this? If most relationships are based on projections, and we cannot avoid them, how can we truly love? Jung's answer is clear. The first step, individuation. Individuation means becoming whole, learning to integrate your shadows, developing in yourself what you have always sought in others. And it is this process that changes how we love. Because when you become whole, you no longer seek in others what you lack. You simply share what you already have, and it is at this moment that the relationship ceases to be a prison and becomes a space for growth. If you feel that you have always repeated the same patterns in your relationships, that you have always been attracted to the same situations, or that you have never managed to feel satisfied with someone, then maybe it is time to look inside yourself. Maybe it is time to understand that the love you are looking for in someone has always been inside you. Jung dedicated a large part of his life to teaching how to find this inner balance, and one of the most effective ways to apply his knowledge in everyday life is the Lud method, a process of only 5 minutes a day for developing inner peace and clarity of mind, based on the principles of individuation and shadow integration. If you want to transform your relationship with yourself, and consequently your relationship with others, the ebook, Jung's Lud Method, 5 minutes a day for inner peace and clarity of mind may be exactly what you need. It is available in the pinned comment to this video, because in the end, the true path of love begins when we stop looking in others for what has always been inside. And now we need to take the next step. If romantic love as we know it is doomed to fail, then how can we build truly healthy relationships? The answer will surprise you. Have you ever wondered if you really love the person next to you, or are you just afraid to be alone? This may be an uncomfortable question, but it is necessary because if you do not love, it is possible that your relationship is based not on love, but on fear. But what is the problem? After all, we are all afraid to be alone, right? The problem is that fear is one of the worst foundations for a relationship. It makes us accept less than we deserve. It makes us ignore our own needs. And it keeps us trapped in relationships that we know deep down are harmful to us. I will tell you that this fear is not always yours. What if much of it was instilled in you since childhood, through culture, society, and the love stories that you were told? Carl Jung spoke of the concept of the collective shadow, unconscious beliefs and fears that we inherit without question, and one of the clearest examples of this shadow is the idea that loneliness is a problem. But is that really the case, or have we been taught to fear loneliness because deep down it forces us to confront truths that we do not want to see? If I asked you right now to close your eyes and imagine someone lonely, what image would come to your mind? Maybe an elderly man looks out the window, a woman lies in bed crying, a man sits alone in a restaurant. But what if I tell you that the loneliest people in the world are not those who are alone, but those who live surrounded by other people and yet feel invisible? How many times have you been in the company of friends and felt that no one understands you? How many times have you lain next to a loved one and felt inexplicably like crying when no one was watching? It is not the absence of people, but the absence of connection, and this is the truth that no one wants to admit. Most people enter into a relationship just to avoid that feeling, but fleeing from loneliness never solves the problem. On the contrary, it only makes it even deeper. Have you ever gone through this? If so, tell me in the comments. No fear, no filters. Maybe you will help someone else understand that they are not alone on this journey. Now, think about how many people you know who live in relationships based on fear. Couples who constantly argue but cannot break up. People who tolerate disrespect because they think they will never find anything better. People who get married because of social pressure and years later realize that they have never been happy. And perhaps the saddest thing, how many couples do you know who stay together just because they do not want to deal with what it means to be alone? What no one teaches us is that love based on fear never lasts long. It can drag on for years. It can turn into a comfortable routine. Outwardly, it may even seem strong, but deep down it always finds itself cracked, because sooner or later, the truth comes to light. The truth is that no relationship can realize what you have not found inside yourself, and it is here that many people fall into a vicious circle. They leave one relationship, and shortly thereafter enter into another, as if they were fleeing. They seem to be trying to find in another person what they have not discovered in themselves. But what would happen if you stopped running? If instead of looking for someone to fill that void, you allowed yourself to feel it? Have you ever seen a person who after a serious breakup completely transforms? The person loses weight, changes their appearance, starts traveling, discovers new hobbies, learns to enjoy their own company, and then one day, unintentionally, you find someone who really makes sense. Do you know why? Because when you become whole, you no longer seek in others what you lack. You simply share what you already have, and then love becomes a choice and not a necessity. That is why Jung said that the process of individuation, of becoming whole, is the only path to healthy relationships, to experience true love. First, you need to learn to live alone, but this is not an easy journey. Loneliness can be scary. Looking inside can be painful, but what if I tell you that the freedom you are looking for is on the other side of that fear? If everything you have been taught about love is wrong, then how can we love? The question we will answer in the next part, but before we go further, I want you to join this conversation in the comments. Tell me what was the biggest insight about love that you have ever received. It could be something that life has taught you, something you have learned on your own, or even what you have realized after watching this video. Your answer may touch someone who needs to hear it today. If the fear of loneliness traps us in empty relationships, and if the search for love is often just a flight from ourselves, then how can we build truly healthy relationships? How can we love without turning the other into a possession? How can we find connection without giving up our identity? The answer may be uncomfortable, but it can also free you forever, and that is exactly what we will see next. If you have ever felt that in a relationship you were losing parts of yourself, if you have ever given up your dreams, your freedom, or even your essence to fit into someone else's life, then maybe it is time to ask yourself if that was really love, or just the fear of staying alone. Society instills in us the idea that love is an unbreakable bond, an absolute union of two souls. But does not this notion of love hide something darker? Carl Jung warns us about one of the most destructive aspects of human relationships, the unconscious desire for possession. We want the person we love to be exclusively ours. We want her to think, feel, and act in a way that makes us feel safe. But love, when transformed into possession, ceases to be love. It becomes control. And the scariest thing is that this happens to practically all of us. Let us imagine a scene. Ana and Miguel have been together for 6 years. At the beginning, the relationship was intense, full of passion, but over time, something changed. Ana began to notice that Miguel was uncomfortable when she went out with her friends. Why do you need to go out so often? I do not think your friend has a good influence on you. If you really loved me, you would not need these things. At first, Ana ignored this. She thought it was just Miguel's way of showing love, but gradually he began to change her behavior. He stopped going out, he gave up his old hobbies, and without realizing it, he became less and less in his own life. Miguel never had to lock her in the house or raise his voice. What he did was much more subtle. He instilled the idea that her freedom represented a threat to their relationship, and this story is constantly repeated. What about you? Have you ever given up something that was good for you just to avoid a conflict in a relationship? Have you ever felt guilty because you lack space? Have you noticed that over the years, you have become a diminished version of who you once were? If so, maybe it is time to ask yourself if that is love or just disguised fear. What makes us want to control those we love? The answer is simple. Fear, fear of loss, fear of not being enough, fear that if we do not establish rules, limits, and barriers, the other person will leave. But here is the big paradox. The more we try to arrest someone, the more they leave. Carl Jung said that true love can only exist in freedom. But most people do not want free love. They want love that can be shaped and guaranteed. But no matter how hard you try, no matter how many agreements are made, how many promises are given, love is not a contract. It is a choice. And like any choice, it can change. What if I tell you that one of the biggest lies that we are told about love is that it has to be exclusive to be real? Throughout our lives, we can love more than one person. We can feel attraction to someone even if we are in a relationship. We can have deep connections that do not fit into traditional frameworks, but what do we do with this? We deny it, we suppress it. We created strict rules to avoid any risk. But what happens when you suppress something? It grows in the shadows. Anything we try to suppress does not disappear. It turns into a shadow, and the shadow unconsciously controls us. And perhaps that is why so many couples suffer in silence. They believe that in order to love someone, you have to break all other connections. But does that make sense? Should true love be based on fear and limitations, or can it be based on trust and authenticity? Imagine for a moment that you can love without fear, that you can be with someone and still maintain your individuality, that your partner is not a prison, but a space where you can grow, that love is not a deal, but a real choice made from day to day. What would change in your life? This idea scares many people because we are programmed to think that love involves sacrifice. We are told that loving someone means giving up parts of yourself, but Jung saw love differently. For him, true love is not about filling voids, it is about sharing fullness. When you are whole, you no longer need to control others. When you feel safe, you do not need impossible guarantees. When you love yourself, You do not demand that others complete you. And here is the great irony. The more freedom you give each other, the stronger the connection becomes. But for this, you need to first face a deep fear, the fear of staying alone. Let us go back to Anna and Miguel. After many years of a suffocating relationship, Anna finally made a decision. She realized that she was spending too much time living for others, that she had lost parts of herself to fit in, that she had exchanged her freedom for the illusion of security, and one day, after a banal argument, she said, "I cannot live like this anymore." Miguel tried to argue. He said that she was exaggerating, that he loved her, but Anna realized that deep down it was never love. It was fear, and then, for the first time, she chose freedom. The question is, what would you choose? If you knew that true love can only exist in freedom, would you have enough courage to truly love, or would you continue to cling to an illusion? This is a complex reflection, but it is a necessary reflection, and now we need to go even deeper. If true love is not possession, then what is it? This question will be answered below. If you have come this far, you have probably realized that almost everything we have been taught about love has been wrong. We were told that we had to look for our other half, that love required sacrifices, that being alone was a sign of failure, but the truth is that most people do not love. They simply project their insecurity onto another person. Then the big question arises. If romantic love as we have learned it is an illusion, then what does it mean to love truly? The answer may be unpleasant, but it can also be liberating. Carl Jung said that love can only be real when it is not a flight from ourselves, and this is perhaps the most important revelation of all, because it means that the love you have always sought has never really been in another person. Most people do not want true love. They want relief. They want someone to make them forget their fears. They want someone to validate them. They want someone to distract them from their own insecurities, but that is not love. It is addiction, and that is why so many relationships break down over time. Because when you fall in love with someone, you fall in love with a version that meets your emotional needs, and when that illusion begins to crumble, what remains? A confrontation with reality. Jung said that true love is only possible when we stop projecting our shadows onto others and begin to integrate those parts inside. That means accepting your insecurity. It means assuming your part in the relationship. It means recognizing your desires without waiting for someone else to fulfill them. It means becoming whole so that love is not a search for fullness, but rather a sharing of fullness. But if this is true, then the next question arises. If loving does not mean needing others, then what connects us? The traditional view of love is based on fear. Fear of losing, fear of being betrayed, fear of not being enough. But true love is not supported by fear. It stands on freedom, and here is a thought that can change everything for you. True love only exists when both people can leave at any moment and decide to stay. This means that love is not a contract, it is not a debt, it is not an obligation, it is a choice, a daily choice, and that choice can only be made truly when there is no fear. But how to eliminate fear from a relationship? The answer may be difficult to accept, but it is simple. Learn to be okay alone, because the biggest secret of true love is that it is only possible when you do not need it. When you are self-sufficient, you do not love out of necessity. You love out of a genuine desire to share. You do not demand from others, you simply appreciate their presence. You do not try to shape them, you accept them as they are. You do not love to fill a void. You love because you have something valuable to offer, and that is the love that lasts, because it is not based on the fear of loneliness. It is based on freedom, but now an even deeper question arises. If true love is not possession, independence, or need, then how can we build it? The answer to this question may be difficult to hear, but before building a healthy relationship with someone, you need to learn to build a healthy relationship with yourself, because if you are afraid of loneliness, any love will be an attempt to escape. If you do not feel whole, love will be a way to fill an inner void, and if you do not know who you really are, sooner or later you will lose yourself in someone else's life. And that is why so many people reach a point in their lives when they realize that they no longer know who they are. They spent years trying to adapt, trying to be who others wanted, trying to meet expectations, and then one day they wake up and realize that they have lost their identity. Maybe this has already happened to you. If it has happened, know that it is never too late to find yourself again, but this reunion requires a first step, a step that few dare to take. Now the decision is in your hands. You can continue to seek love as a means of salvation. You can continue to repeat the same patterns, hoping that one day someone will finally complete you, or you can choose something different. You can choose to become whole. You can choose to be the person you have always sought in others. You can create a relationship with yourself before waiting for someone else to make you happy, and this choice changes everything, because when you become whole within yourself, love ceases to be a necessity and becomes a gift. You do not ask for it, you naturally attract it. You do not need to control the other because you are no longer afraid of losing them. You do not experience excessive jealousy because you trust yourself. You do not need constant proof of love because you already love yourself. This is true freedom, because now that we understand what true love is, it is time to answer the most important question. How to apply this knowledge in practice, how to turn this into something real that you can live every day. We will develop a clear and practical strategic plan so that you can experience this transformation in a deep and authentic way. If you have come this far, it means that something inside you has already changed. Maybe you have realized that all your life you have been looking in others for what you could only find inside yourself. Maybe you have realized that many relationships are based not on love, but on the fear of being alone. Maybe for the first time you are facing the truth. The love you have always sought has never been somewhere outside. It has always been inside you, but knowing this is not enough. Because knowledge without action becomes just another theory. And if there is something that Jung teaches us, it is that true transformation only happens when we assimilate our awareness into concrete changes. How can we build a love that is not possession, independence, or projection, but rather an authentic expression of who we really are? The answer is not in empty promises and not in superficial methods. It means you choose to live from this moment on, and that is why we are now going to draw up a strategic plan, a real and tangible path to integrate this learning and make it part of your life. The path to true love lies through three main stages. Each of them represents a step on a path of transformation that Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you really are. There are no shortcuts, no magic formulas, but if you sincerely follow these steps, your relationship with yourself and others will never be the same. Phase 1. Deconstruction, liberation from illusions. Before building something new, you need to make space, and that means deconstructing the illusions that have sabotaged your relationships until now. If the love that you were taught to seek is not true love, we were made to believe that we needed another person to feel complete. We were told that sacrificing our personality for the other is a sign of attachment. We were convinced that staying alone is a failure, but these are all illusions, and to be freed, you need to question each of these beliefs and the story of what love means to you. Take a break now, take a piece of paper, or just think deeply about what you are still carrying inside that does not belong to you. What are you willing to give up to finally see love clearly? Stage 2. Integration, becoming the person you have always wanted to deconstruct illusions. It is time for the most important part. Become the person you have always sought in others. This means filling your own emptiness. It means learning to feel safe without needing external guarantees. It means looking in the mirror and knowing that with or without someone next to you, you are already enough. Integrate your shadow. And if you do not learn to integrate your own shadow, your fears, your insecurity, your need for control, it will continue to sabotage your relationships. Here is a powerful exercise. First, name 3 qualities that you have always sought in others. Maybe it is safety, attachment, admiration. Second, now ask yourself, have you developed these qualities, or have you always waited for someone to come and fill them for you? Third, finally, write an obligation to yourself on how to develop these qualities in yourself, because only then, when you become whole, love ceases to be a necessity and becomes a choice. Phase 3. Expansion, building relationships based on freedom. Now that you have freed yourself from illusions and have begun to realize yourself, it is time to turn this new version of yourself into something real in your relationships. This means that in the future, you will enter into a relationship not out of fear of loneliness, but because you really want to share your life. You will not demand from others what you are not able to give yourself. You will no longer perceive love as a prison, but as a space for mutual growth. And when this transformation happens, everything changes. Relationships that previously seemed suffocating begin to lose meaning. People you were previously attracted to suddenly cease to interest you. The fear of loneliness disappears because now you have found in yourself everything you have always sought in others. This is true love, and it starts when you decide to live it from the inside. Now the decision is in your hands. You can continue the same cycle as always, or you can choose something new, something deeper, or rather more free. And if you feel that you are ready to take this step, there is a practical way to do it. Jung taught us that the biggest mistake of humanity is to live unconsciously, repeating the same models without realizing it. And that is why, if you want to turn everything you have learned here into something real in your life, you need a daily practice that helps you bring this awareness into your everyday life. It is with this purpose in mind that the Jung method was born. 5 minutes a day for inner peace and clarity of mind. This is an ebook, not just a book. It is a practical step-by-step guide to integrating these teachings into your daily life. Only 5 minutes a day to reconnect with yourself, understand your mind, and transform your relationships with others from your own fullness. If everything we have talked about here makes sense to you, then this may be the next natural step on your path. The link to access the ebook is posted in the pinned comment to this video, and remember, true love begins when you become whole. If this video made you think, if any part of this journey has resonated deeply with you, share it in the comments. It may be a thought, an experience, or just a feeling. If you want, you can write anonymously. The most important thing is that together we can build a space of truth and transformation. Now before you leave, do 3 things. 1. Like this video. This helps this message reach more people. 2. Subscribe to the channel Fullness in Reflection. This is how we are just starting this journey together. 3. Activate the call to receive more content like this. Freedom begins when you decide to see beyond illusions. And today, you have taken a big step on this path. See you in the next video.